Have you ever stopped to wonder why so many African nations rely on foreign militaries to handle their internal security? For years, troops from the West, France, the United States, even Russia, have stepped in under the promise of restoring peace. But instead of stability, these interventions have left behind a trail of deepening chaos. In many cases, the presence of foreign soldiers hasn't solved the problem. It's made it worse. Insecurity has grown, violence has spread, and trust in these foreign forces has completely crumbled. Now, something unprecedented is happening. 3 countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, have said enough. They're no longer willing to outsource their sovereignty. In a bold and historic move, they've launched a joint military force, unified both on land and in the air. This isn't just a strategic alliance. It's a declaration of independence from foreign control. But can this African-led army truly stand its ground against the threats in the Sahel? Can it protect borders, stop insurgents, and prevent future coups? Or is this alliance already walking a tightrope, caught between ambition and reality? That's what we're about to uncover. It was December 1st, 2023, a date that stirred hope across the African continent, when the foreign ministers of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso stepped forward to announce plans for a new confederation. The reaction was electric. For millions of Pan-African believers, this wasn't just political news. It was a dream finally taking shape. A united front. A bold step toward true African unity. Behind closed doors in Bamako, top diplomats from the 3 nations had spent 2 intense days outlining the foundation of this alliance. They spoke of diplomacy, of defense, of development, not as distant ideals, but as tools to consolidate political and economic independence, free from the grip of foreign influence. Mali's foreign minister, Abdoulaye Diop, made it clear. Formal recommendations would soon reach the heads of state. A summit was coming, a decision would be made. And across the region, people waited, some with excitement, others with cautious hope, for the day this confederation would come to life. Then came July 2024, the moment the world had been waiting for. After months of anticipation, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso stood side by side and officially launched their long-promised alliance. The confederation had moved from dream to reality, and they didn't waste any time. One of the bloc's first major operations, a joint deployment of 5,000 soldiers across the Sahel, tasked with one mission: crush terrorism and dismantle transnational organized crime. This wasn't just about security, it was a statement to the world. The Alliance of Sahel States, or AES, wasn't formed just for show. It was born from necessity. These 3 nations, long stripped of their dignity by neo-colonial influence, had decided to take back control. The Sahel, one of the richest regions in natural resources and one of the most strategically located in Africa, had been kept in poverty for decades. Exploited by the West, especially France, while corrupt African elites looked the other way. But now, a new generation of leaders is rewriting the script. The AES isn't just a political bloc, it's a rebellion against dependency. And their latest move? Forming a unified joint force that answers to no foreign master. No more begging for protection, no more waiting for Western troops. Still, critics are asking the tough questions. If they don't want foreign intervention, why are Russian forces in Mali and Burkina Faso? Why sign defense agreements with Russia? To understand that, you need to rewind the tape. Before these leaders took power, their countries were in chaos. The military? Under-equipped. The governments? Dependent on France. Foreign troops patrolled the streets, while extremist groups terrorized entire communities. Upgrading national defense wasn't even on the agenda. It didn't have to be. France was in charge. And that was the problem. Here's the truth the world rarely talks about. The reason countries like the US, the UK, France, and Germany have some of the most powerful militaries on Earth is simple. They pour unimaginable sums into their defense sectors. Take the United States, for example. It holds the world's largest defense budget, funneling billions, year after year, into its military machine. That money buys the best: cutting-edge aircraft, elite training programs, naval power, cyber defense, and more. It funds deep research and development, where innovation in warfare happens quietly but relentlessly. As a result, the US military doesn't just fight wars, it shapes the future of warfare. From stealth drones to AI-driven systems, their arsenal looks more like science fiction than conventional combat. And the US isn't alone. Russia, China, and other global giants are locked in this arms race too, investing heavily in next-gen military technology, robots, autonomous weapons, and data-driven combat strategies. Now, compare that to Africa. In stark contrast, many African nations still treat defense like an afterthought. Budgets are minimal. Equipment is outdated. Training is often substandard. Soldiers, underpaid and overexposed, are sent into battle with little more than courage and rusted rifles. Morale, often crushed under poor conditions, lack of support, and the constant threat of being outgunned. Let's be honest, African militaries are light years behind their Western counterparts. Not because African soldiers are less brave, but because their governments have never prioritized defense the way global powers have. And that gap, that inequality in strength and preparation, has left Africa vulnerable for far too long. And this is exactly why so many African nations have become dependent on foreign militaries to protect their own people. The truth is uncomfortable. Most African leaders simply lacked the will. Weak, unambitious, and often complicit, they saw no need to invest in their own defense systems. Why build strength when you can borrow it? Why train your own army when someone else can do it for you? Some even went as far as sabotaging their own militaries, ensuring they never became strong enough to stand on their own. The Sahel region is a prime example. Just look at the relationship between France and its former colonies. When President Ibrahim Traoré rose to power in Burkina Faso, he didn't just take office, he pulled back the curtain. What he exposed was damning. Under the so-called defense agreement with France, the Burkinabe military was never truly sovereign. France dictated nearly everything: who trained the soldiers, who got promoted, who was sent abroad, even which weapons to purchase and from where. But the worst part? The equipment France approved was outdated, inadequate, and outrageously overpriced. The Burkinabe defense minister later admitted that these bad deals left the military so unequipped that they had to borrow gear from Chad just to function. Let that sink in. A nation borrowing military equipment from another poor neighbor, while still under a French security partnership. And all this happened under the watch of a democratic government that did absolutely nothing to stop it. According to Traoré, morale within the ranks was equally shattered. Soldiers were barely fed, wore ragged uniforms, and were forced to sleep in unacceptable conditions. They weren't just under-equipped, they were disrespected, neglected, and left to rot in silence. But not anymore. So let's ask the obvious question. How could soldiers, stripped of resources, morale, and dignity, ever be expected to defeat terrorism? The answer is, they couldn't. And sadly, this isn't just the story of Burkina Faso. It's the harsh reality across most of Africa. With the exception of a few, like Algeria, Egypt, and Morocco, most African nations have been left with hollow armies and broken command structures. And if you pay attention, there's a pattern. Those few countries with real military strength, they don't suffer the same chaos and insecurity plaguing the Sahel. Which brings us to a controversial but necessary move. In the absence of capable sovereign military structures, and with France's toxic legacy still fresh, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso turned to Russia. And not out of blind loyalty, but out of strategy. Unlike France, Russia's defense agreements with the AES don't come with puppet strings. Russia doesn't control promotions. It doesn't dictate what weapons to buy. It doesn't override sovereignty. The AES commands its own forces. Russia is there to support, not dominate. Yes, Russia is a global military powerhouse. And yes, their assistance strengthens the AES's ability to fight extremism. But for the leaders of the Sahel, there's a line that cannot be crossed. Sovereignty comes first. And if at any moment Russia dares to interfere the way France once did, they'll be shown the door. Because this time, Africa is setting the rules. But here's what sets Russia apart, and why this partnership matters. Unlike France, Russia doesn't meddle in Burkina Faso's internal affairs. There's no hidden leash, no backroom manipulation. The defense agreement between them is built on mutual benefit, not dominance. And with Russia's superior military expertise, something remarkable has started to happen. The Burkinabe military is slowly transforming. The same goes for Mali and Niger. With Russia's support, these nations have finally begun acquiring real, modern weapons, tools they were once denied under France's watch. Still, let's be clear, this is not about long-term dependence. The military leaders of the Sahel know better. Their deal with Russia, it's strategic and temporary. They're not building their future around Moscow. They're building it around themselves. Because these leaders understand a truth that's been buried for too long. The only real solution to African problems must come from Africa. That's why they're not stopping at upgrading their national armies. They've gone a step further, establishing a joint force, a united army, a unified air force, a defense identity that belongs to them and only them. And while Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso may be landlocked, with no navy to command the seas, they've made a decision that could shift the entire balance of power on the continent to protect the Sahel, together. This is history in the making. Years ago, Muammar Gaddafi dared to dream of a united Africa, one government, one currency, one army. Back then, the vision seemed too bold, too impossible. But now, that dream is beginning to take form, piece by piece. The AES may not yet have a common currency, but they've done something no one thought three fragile Sahel nations could achieve: one confederation, one army, one voice. In January 2025, Niger's defense minister, General Salifu Modi, delivered the announcement that changed everything. The AES Joint Task Force, 5,000 strong, is not only formed, but armed, trained, and ready to deploy. Our forces will now be able to intervene together, Modi declared. A unified military, built to push back against chaos, terrorism, and transnational crime. Not under foreign command, not under foreign influence, but led by Africans, for Africans. Modi didn't stop there. He revealed that this specialized force would operate with land units, air power, and intelligence capabilities, spanning the entire territory of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The deployment? Just weeks away. Joint exercises have already begun. Command structures are in place. Communication lines tested. And this time, coordination isn't a buzzword. It's a battle plan. What was once a dream whispered in Pan-African circles is now unfolding in real time. The Sahel isn't just defending itself, it's rewriting the rules. And just when the world thought the AES had shown all its cards, they unveiled something even more ambitious. In addition to the 5,000-strong ground force, the Alliance of Sahel States has now taken to the skies. Last month, in Bamako, something unprecedented happened. The chiefs of staff of the air forces from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger came together for a historic summit, marking the birth of a united air defense system. It wasn't just a meeting. It was the laying of a foundation for the Sahel's military future, one built on air power, speed, and sovereignty. Chaired by General Oumar Diarra, chief of the general staff of the Malian armies, the gathering was a strategic turning point. For the first time, these nations weren't just discussing security, they were engineering it. Under the banner, Air Cooperation within the AES, towards integrated defense and strengthened sovereignty, the top brass defined what regional defense would look like in the skies above Africa. Interoperable equipment, coordinated cross-border airstrikes, shared intelligence, joint pilot training. This isn't just military planning, it's a doctrine rooted in unity, forged through necessity, and aimed at reclaiming control over a region long destabilized by outside powers. The Sahel isn't only standing up, it's taking flight. Air power is now essential, military officials declared, especially in confronting the asymmetric threats that haunt the three-border zone. And the results are already showing. Through joint air-ground operations, the AES has begun to strike back, fast, precise, and coordinated. But this shift isn't just tactical, it's symbolic. These nations aren't just fighting insurgents, they're dismantling an old system, a system where African security depended on foreign boots and borrowed strategies. Now, the AES is charting a different course, one defined by autonomy, not assistance. The creation of a united air force is more than a military upgrade. It's a political statement. We will protect our skies. We will defend our borders. We will control our future. But the skies are already tense. One of the major sparks behind this aerial unification came from a diplomatic flashpoint between Mali and Algeria. On March 31st, 2025, Algeria claimed it had shot down a Malian drone, accusing it of violating sovereign airspace. Mali hit back, calling the incident a fabrication. They insisted the drone was on a routine mission, well within their own territory. But the damage was done. Ambassadors were recalled. Airspaces were shut down. The rift deepened. In this atmosphere of growing regional uncertainty, the AES Air Force isn't just about fighting terrorism. It's about guarding sovereignty against any threat, foreign or regional. And for the first time in a long time, the Sahel isn't just reacting. In a powerful show of solidarity, Burkina Faso and Niger stood shoulder to shoulder with Mali, both nations recalling their ambassadors from Algiers in response to Algeria's drone incident claims. Algeria retaliated, pulling its diplomats from Mali and Niger, and halting the deployment of a representative to Burkina Faso. But what the world witnessed next was something rare in African geopolitics: unity with teeth. The response from the AES wasn't just diplomatic, it was strategic. A threat to one had become a threat to all. And now, that collective resolve has taken shape in the skies, with the creation of a joint air force that will respond to any aerial threat as one. This isn't just military coordination, it's a blueprint for what African unity could and should look like. Imagine if the African Union had acted with this level of strength and conviction. Would the West still dare to meddle so brazenly in African affairs? Would foreign nations feel entitled to dictate policy or topple regimes? The Alliance of Sahel States is more than just a defense pact. It is a living, breathing symbol of what true African integration can achieve. It is bold, it is unapologetic, and it is working. Even Russia has taken notice and offered not resistance, but support. Far from obstructing AES progress, Moscow has pledged its backing. Military specialists, equipment, training, logistics. Russia's message, delivered through Tatiana Dovgalenko of the Foreign Ministry, was clear. We are here to strengthen counterterrorism capabilities and improve combat effectiveness. But more than that, we are here to support the region's social and economic development. For the first time in decades, the Sahel is not being shaped by foreign intervention. It's being defined by African action. Tatiana Dovgalenko of Russia's foreign ministry didn't mince words. The creation of such a community, she said, is an important step in consolidating the efforts of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, not just for national security, but for achieving their social and economic goals. It's a statement that underscores just how different Russia's approach has been compared to that of France. Because if it had been France, the story would have played out differently: meddling, oversight, strings attached to every bullet and boot. France would have demanded a seat at every table, vetoed decisions, and pulled levers behind the curtain. That's the difference, and why Russia has become a trusted partner in this new African awakening. Since the military leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger came to power, Russia hasn't hesitated. It was one of the first countries to reach out, not to control, but to assist. When the West turned its back, when weapons deals were blocked, when pressure mounted, Russia stepped in. In Burkina Faso, when the international arms market slammed its doors, Russia opened its arsenal. In the face of repeated coup attempts, it sent military instructors to help stabilize President Traoré's government. In Mali, the support was even more visible. Recently, Russia delivered a formidable convoy of military hardware. The roads shook under the weight of armored Kamaz trucks, T-72B3M tanks, and BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles. The convoy also included BTR-82A personnel carriers, Tiger and Spartak armored vehicles, towed artillery, anti-aircraft guns, even boats. It wasn't just a show of support, it was a message. Africa would no longer be left defenseless. And this time, the help came without a leash. The Sahel is building its future, on land, in the skies, and now, in space. The message from the top brass couldn't be clearer. The AES is not backing down. In a decisive show of unity, the chiefs of staff reaffirmed their commitment to arming the alliance of Sahel states with a military force that is both credible and sovereign. For General Moussa Diallo, Chief of the General Staff of Burkina Faso's armed forces, this mission is more than tactical, it's ideological. It is up to us to build together a coordinated, sovereign, and united response, he declared. No more foreign fixes, no more dependency, just African solutions built by Africans for Africa. At the Ouagadougou summit, key defense and security protocols were reviewed, sharpened, and validated. Concrete steps for deploying the joint force were mapped out, on paper and in strategy rooms. General Diallo called it exactly what it is, a decisive step toward full autonomy. A defense system grounded not just in firepower, but in solidarity, mutual trust, and seamless coordination. It's becoming undeniable. The military leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso aren't just reacting to a crisis. They're engineering a new future, a future defined by sovereignty, security, and most of all, independence in every sense of the word. And if they remain at the helm, one thing is certain, the mission will not fail. So now we ask you, what do you think? Is this the beginning of a new African order? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this story is far from over.